I don't go to the movies much. And in fact, when I do go, I only tend to see movies that my children want to see. But now that they're getting older and can look after themselves for longer periods of time without my wife and me in the house, I'm considering getting out more, changing how I use my time, going out now and again without them. One new film that got my attention lately, although it won't be shown in theaters, it's going to be a broadcast on television, is a new one featuring Michael Douglas as Liberace. I think that might be the most inspired bit of casting I've heard about in quite a while. From what I've read, the film explores what it was like for the famous pianist to create a life that was so kitschy, so far out there, while simultaneously maintaining a very private and secretive life as a gay man. Looking back on it from our vantage point now, what Liberace was doing was engaging in a high level of camp and irony. He was homosexual, yet that was never mentioned explicitly. At the same time, he behaved in the most flamboyantly, stereotypically gay style that it's shocking that no one ever mentioned it in public. Liberace was known to all America, yet ironically, he remained America's most closeted gay man. The very thing that was the most private for him was also the most public. His life and his art ask, how much do we reveal about ourselves to others, and what do our revelations communicate about who we are? In a strange way, I think there's a lesson from the life of Liberace that we can bring to bear on the process of making connections in a synagogue community, and that each of us has to be willing to show something of ourselves to others, including things that we might not otherwise reveal, in order to create deeper relationships. For example, I am not by nature a gregarious, outgoing person, but I take on those attributes in service to my work. In my personal life, though, that's not me. On the rare occasion that I go out to a sporting event, for example, I'm quite comfortable sitting next to someone for 2 or even 3 hours without ever addressing them or even making eye contact. So, my goal for making and deepening connections at the synagogue takes me out of my comfort zone. It forces me to become someone I am not, to put myself on display in a way that doesn't come naturally, and it forces me to reveal parts of myself to others that I normally wouldn't in order to make connections. Like Liberace, I am often playing a role that is a version of myself, just not the one that I see as the real me. As our members will read in our June newsletter, I'll be setting lobby hours 2 days a week during the summer to meet our congregants here in the building, and I'm going to be calling those whose names don't yet ring a bell to meet me here, or to set a time for me to see them at home. Now again, that's not how I see myself as a go out and meet them kind of guy, but I think it's imperative that I pretend to be that person in order to continue to learn the names and the faces of all of our members. And there is an episode in this week's Parsha that touches on some of these same ideas. At a certain point in the Parsha, Moses gathers a group of 70 elders and stations them around the tent of meeting. This is where Moses himself would typically hear the word of God in prophecy. This one time, all the other leaders also feel the Spirit of God move them in the way that it habitually did with Moses. That event supported Moses' authority because then the elders knew, if even for a moment, what it felt like for him to have a direct experience of God, of revelation. Now 2 of the elders, whose names were Eldad and Medad, remained away from the tent, from the public setting of that prophecy, yet they had the same experience as the others who had gathered there. That story suggests that moments of revelation, be they divine or human, can happen in public or at home. Whether we go to a public space, the tent of meeting, the synagogue, or we meet each other where we live, We are all open to and capable of making that connection, of revealing ourselves to others and seeing who they are as well. Why did Eldad and Medad avoid going to the tent of meeting? Maybe they didn't like crowds. Perhaps they were physically unable to go. But whatever the reason, they were still able to experience something of prophecy, of God personally, where they were. Instead of going to meet God, the revelation, the relationship, had to go to them. Some in our community are also sometimes unwilling or unable to make themselves available for those kinds of connections to the community and to me. In those cases, the burden is on us to go to them. We have to be willing to extend ourselves to those who have not or who cannot come to us. Unless we do so, we risk missing out on making a connection that will give heft to our lives, imbuing them with the meaning that our presence and theirs brings. It's not enough to sit in our own tents in safety, hoping to avoid having to talk to anyone. And the longer the time goes without our reaching out to the under-affiliated, the greater the possibility of someone slipping through the cracks, of feeling isolated or disconnected from the larger Jewish community. Life has a way of bringing us together sooner or later. As in the story of Eldad and Medad, events may eventually force us to see each other in any case. The only question is whether we'll already have a relationship with each other when those events do that. We have to embrace the Liberace approach. No, I don't mean sequins or wide collars or pink tuxedos, but we have to find ways of connecting that may not be what we usually do, what we expect of ourselves, in order to reap the benefits of making those kinds of relationships, those kinds of connections. By seeking connection, by being more Liberace than Eldad and Medad, we may even find that we are what we are pretending to be, that having an outgoing personality and reaching out to others is not just a costume that we put on for the duration of a visit with me here in the lobby or with someone in their homes, but a true part of who we really are. Shabbat Shalom.